Welcome to another broadcast of Truth Be Told, where we believe an experience becomes truth. I'm your host, Tony Sweet. Captain Ron is out on assignment, so we have the one and only intuitive Tricia Carr with us today. Please go to her website, TriciaCarrCharm.com. Today we have author, paradigm shifter, and talk show host Alan Steinfeld with us. Alan is dedicated to awareness of UFOs and ET contact, and we're going to talk about his latest book that addressed the subject from an academic and cultural perspective. And he feels the whole situation is about perception and understanding of our true place in the universe. He is a host of The New Realities, a cable program on Time Warner in New York City. He has a very popular YouTube channel, and we are excited to have him with us today. So please welcome to Truth Be Told, Alan Steinfeld. Oh, the crowd goes wild for Alan.
That's impressive.
Thank you. Well, we are in Hollywood. We went out on the street and drug them in, and they said, we have to see Alan. So.
Great. Truth be told, are you sure we want to start with that?
Well, we are excited to have you here. I've been reading up on you and some interesting stuff. I would love to talk about your background, but first, Truth Be Told is all about, from paranormal UFOs, and you were recently at Contact in the Desert, where Captain Ron and I was at. And I want to talk about your encounter with a UFO, because everybody that I've had on the show always seems to have that contact, and so this is something we have to hear. So tell us your story.
Well, just to preface that, I think most people involved in this sort of investigation have been touched by something inexplicable. So I've had a series of contacts over the years, starting when I was young. I mean, they're not as vivid as some people, like Whitley Strieber, somebody I really admire. Yeah. But, most people who are obsessed with this subject definitely have had something go on. And for me, let's see, do you want to know my earliest contact?
Yeah,
my
please.
latest. Well, like a lot of people, I used to see these strange beings looking at me in the window at night.
Oh, really?
While I was sleeping, and it's like no one else would see them. I don't think I was making them up, but they were very strange looking beings. And then, what the weird thing is? I found a little plastic toy that actually matched one of the beings I saw in the window when I was like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old. I thought that was really strange. I held on to that little like plastic toy for a long time. Right. So anyway, that just also made me, I always felt a little different from other people. I couldn't get into like the whole team sport thing, like, for our team, yeah, you're our country, yay for this. It's what's the point? So I definitely felt separate. I mean, I did like sports. I did like doing that, using my body and feeling embodied. Mm-hmm. So but I did feel separate from most of the people I grew up with, and somehow there was other people out there that I could talk to about some of these things. So the earliest sort of metaphysical paranormal thing that I'll get into the UFO stuff, is feeling out of my body. I felt, I probably was about 12 or 13, being like I was being pulled out of my body by the back of my neck somehow energeticely. And it was very... Are you shaking your head? Do you have experience like this?
Not me, but maybe.
I've had astral projection, but not in a manner that was that I felt like I was being pulled as much. But yeah, I've had astral projection. I do a lot of journeying, so yeah, maybe not as dramatic as what you're describing, but I do understand it. I understand the feeling.
Yeah, well, I wasn't prepared for it, and it felt like a force being pulling me out. That's the only way I could describe it. And that was even before I even understood the idea of ETs. So that has happened actually not too It's not as severe as it was when I was growing up, but it has happened recently. And I feel like this was a training a very harsh training for me to function in a pure conscious field separate from the body, but also being aware. When I've had smoother out-of-body experiences, I felt connected to the body. I felt like I was more, I felt more in control. I'll just say that. So,
what
yes, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, when you said that you felt like you're being pulled, did you feel completely separated from your body? And if it was, what happened? What did you see? What did you feel at that point?
I felt like electrical almost energy, like coming in and trying to disconnect me somehow. And it was like a struggle. And that just happened in the early years. And then, I don't know, 12, 13, 14. And somehow that shifted. Maybe my frequency changed, perhaps, because I think when we talk about ETs, we're talking about beings that are not, most of them, not on this physical frequency vibration.
Right.
You know, what it's coming down to is understanding in the new paradigm that we are energy and not matter. Of course, we have physical bodies that are material, but what animates the body is the energy, is the energy frequency of our soul, if you want to put it that way, that gives life to the body. And, you know, if we that exists, that's a forever essence, in my opinion.
Right. Absolutely. Yes.
Right.
Yes. We're with you for sure.
Right.
So the interfacing with these ETs has been, I think for me anyway, a kind of amplification of that energetic. So perhaps I could meet them. And that is also maybe why I didn't feel so connected to the other humans here, because they were at one level. I'm not lower or higher. They were just different. And I couldn't really relate to them, but I also couldn't relate to the ETs either.
Right.
So,
right. And why do you?
So I was. Yes.
No, I was going to say, why do you think? Because I've had an encounter, but I've never had like a face-to-face or even felt like I was being either abducted or pulled from my body. Why do you feel that you were either chosen or one of the? Because it sounds like, you know, in the world there's thousands and thousands of people that abducted. So,
I mean, there was some study by Bud Hopkins and John Mack in the days in like around, when was it, about 2006, where actually it was the Roper poll, but the results went to John Mack and Bud Hopkins, saying that 1 out of 5 people have some signs of abduction. I don't know if that's a lot. I mean, that's a huge number. Look at the Roper poll. Or that, I'm not saying they were abducted, but they have some
like
element
or something
of having been. Why me? I mean, me and 100,000 or millions of people ask ourselves that question. But what it does seem from the people I've met in this field, because then finally I was able to meet people. And, you know, Bud Hopkins was here in New York. He had a group called the Intruder Foundation. And I was able to meet John Mack, he's like the patron saint of abductions, you know. And he validated that, you know, because he was a psychiatrist working and teaching at Harvard, that these people weren't crazy who claimed these things. So, and then I've met Whitley Strieber. But why do all these people? Because I feel there might be a sensitivity that some of this population has. They tend to be artists or creators, or, you know, if you're really dense and in this material world, even if these things happen to you, you're not even going to take notice, because you'll just write it off, or you say, oh, that was weird. But, you know, I think the people who are a little more sensitive or open to creative ideas tend to be ones that notice these types of situations. So maybe it's more that. Maybe 1 out of 2 people are abducted, and it's only the people that are aware of this this activity can bring it into this sort of in between reality, because it's not really of this reality.
Right.
That's sort of that book you mentioned, and I'm writing it. It's not finished yet because it's like I'm trying to carve new ground into the cognitive awareness of the population. Because, I mean, of course, people have talked about abductions and ETs, but I'm trying to say that this is a shift in how we relate to reality in general.
Yes.
I mean, other people have said that too, but I'm trying to demonstrate that in a way where other people can start to open up their cognitive facilities to realize that. If you know what I mean.
Oh,
absolutely, yeah. I work with ET spirit guides consciously. You know, they're more like ascended, fifth dimensional, and fifth density and above. So yeah, I absolutely relate to how it would be consciousness shifting if we allowed that awareness in. That we have benevolent. There are benevolent, more ascended, higher vibrational ETs or other planetary ultra dimensionals, extra dimensionals that are interested in helping us. So yeah, I have that perspective and understanding, definitely.
But the only reason you have that is because you've opened up a facility in your brain and your awareness to have that kind of contact.
Right.
So how did you? Yeah. So what was? I mean, I don't want to interview you.
That's okay.
What was your process in doing that? Because that's what I'm trying to communicate, that process of showing the facilities of consciousness. It's like having in different software. Wow, I didn't know I had that on my computer. So how did you open up the software that you had to make that contact?
My software, it's really interesting. You might find this really interesting. So my spiritual journey actually starts from when I was a kid and I was in the Christian church, the religion, and I actually had a lot of spiritual growth when I was in the church, but at some point the religious aspect of it that I didn't realize I was religious as well, but it started to be inhibiting. So then I left the church because it was not fostering spiritual growth. It was hurting my heart, all the ego stuff. But while I was there, this was not something that was taught in the church, but in my own study and my own devotion and my own prayer, which was really very much meditation, I actually even saw in like the Bible, Jesus' words saying, I have other sheep and they are not of this pen. And I read that one day and I was like, he's talking about other planets. He's saying that my Father's house has many mansions. And I was like, oh, that means not just Earth. That means that this consciousness isn't only about these beings. So when I was 15, that actually dawned on me in the middle. Yeah, when I was in church.
Girl,
you know what I mean?
I was picking my nose at 15.
You weren't. But, that was a seed. But then I had a metaphysical opening a bit more recently, more like 3 years ago. And then again, just in my seeking and understanding the eternal nature of the consciousness that is expressed by source energy or whatever you want to call a creative source or God or whatever, that then in that landscape, I just was open to it. If there are angels and if there are departed humans whose essences or consciousnesses are benevolent in helping us, so then it just is logical. I can actually use my linear mind to say it's logical that there are all sorts of benevolent and malevolent, ETs or other planetary extra-dimensional types of consciousnesses.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, this is just my research. What makes the ETs a little different is that they're so weird.
And they feel so different energetically, connecting with them.
For people like me that have never felt the ET energy, what does that feel
like? They're just always different. I mean, of course, every consciousness you connect with is different feeling, but the texture of the energy of angels versus archangels versus departed loved ones versus ascended masters versus ETs. I can usually tell when it's an ET just because I can't put it in any other feelings
And it doesn't mean that it's
category.
negative either always. It's weird, but negative.
I don't. My dial is not tuned in for anybody negative. Get out of here. I don't have any time for you.
Okay.
I have authority. I have sovereignty in what I'm experiencing.
Right.
I have no issue. The only time I've been approached by something that wasn't completely benevolent, it was laughable.
Okay. What about you, Alan? What was?
No, but what was that last thing? It was what? Laughable?
Oh, it was laughable. Yeah. Yeah, it was laughable when I had some tricksters kind of try to step to me, and I was like, get out.
Please.
But Tony, your question is really good. It's weird, but it's not necessarily bad. But the thing I was going to say about the ETs, or at least the Greys,
mm-hmm.
I mean, that's different than the angelic realm. You can feel the heart, the love, the the good feelings when you meet those angelic realm. When you meet think I've met, there's none of that. I mean, I didn't feel any of that. It's like, it's creepy. Mm-hmm. It's weird. It's eerie. It's like going to like a horror movie, you know? Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean they're bad. It just means that where they're coming from consciously in their conscious field is so different than the human field.
Right.
It's like, and that's why I'm talking about abductions more. That's why most people don't stay conscious. Most people, even the most lucid of abductees, people like Whitley Strieber, there's always a point where they are out. Mm-hmm. They just lose all sense of awareness because of this distortion. Like, it's like this. Have you ever been around like great masters, great teachers? You feel uplifted, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been around strange people? You pick up their vibe.
Right. True.
Well, the ET vibe, the only way I can compare is like a really creepy horror movie, like those Dagger, chainsaw movies where it's like you're just about to freak out because everything. That's sort of the vibe of the ET, and not on purpose. Just they're just made that way. They're just vibrating, and this is what I think as contemporary civilization we have to come to terms with, that these energies are so different. And I think if we can accept that and not go into fear, we'll be able to come to equal terms. They're not purposely weird. They're just my theory is because of the sun that we are under creates a conscious field that's how you can look at animals and relate to them. Even beings within our solar system have the same solar consciousness. But when you meet a being from another star system, the frequency of their conscious awareness is different, and it distorts our reality. That's the only way I can sort of describe it. And this is what, if we're going to meet these galactic races, this is what we're going to have to come to terms with. We're going to have to overcome the fears and this reaction we have to something different, something feeling different. We have to become masters of awareness. This is the training I think we're going through now as a civilization. Yes, people like Tricia there are training their consciousness to start to facilitate these other realities. But imagine on a global scale, we're not just talking about immigration here and people being different. That's like not even a dress rehearsal. But that's symptomatic of the fear humanity has of the other. Yes. So if once we get through this, little glitch we have about being afraid of each other because they're from someplace else or they look different, then I think we'll be ready to really encounter the bigger confrontation here, which are beings that don't even think or feel, look, or behave. Another one of the most freakiest things about the ETs that I've been studying and counting, that they have none of the emotionality that we have. You look at someone, and you can see by their facial expression, oh yeah, I know what she's feeling pretty much. I know what you're feeling. You're both, because we have these mirror neurons that actually start functioning hours after we're born. Your mother smiles at you when you're 3 hours old, you smile back. It's a reflex. And because of that mirror neurons, we know how other people are feeling.
Right.
We can read the social landscape because you look at everyone and go, yeah, I felt that. I know that. And we're just mirroring. But when you meet these things, it's a total blank expression. There's no capacity on our part to mirror because they're not feeling, at least the ones I met, the way we feel. And you know what happens when we meet beings that we can't relate to? We are traumatized. I'm talking about trauma. I'm talking about, at least for some of these beings, because we can't relate to them emotionally, our system, because of the thousands and thousands years of conditioning we have in social consciousness to meet and feel and interact, because that's not there, we start to freak out. That's
right.
another reason to freak out. So, you know, we have to start to these ideas. But part of the reason I think we are being abducted, or people have been, is because they want to start to have these human emotions, because they were pure, let's call it left brain intellects, and they lost a capacity for passion and feeling, right. And they realized that somewhere they took a wrong turn.
And they no longer, the grays in particular is what I feel like you're discussing, the ones that have lost their emotionality. They've also lost their ability to reproduce too.
And that's connected, their passion. Yeah. They lost their ability to feel, so they couldn't reproduce because there was no passion. So they realized they took a wrong turn towards, let's say, towards God. You know, sure. They developed pure intellect, and that's in a dead end for them. So they need our genetics, and the abduction program was about, even though right now I think they've gotten what they have come for. I think the whole abduction thing has been totally down since the late 90s.
Oh, really?
So I think
thought it was like 2006. Is it more like the late 90s that the abduction program ended? I
think it reached a peak in the 80s, 90s, and I think it might actually be still going on for some people. But I think they got what they needed genetically from us, because you don't just take, let's say, your blonde hair, blue eye. They take the emotions, and in the genetics are emotional capabilities. So what they're merging in these hybrids is the pure intellect and the ability to, is what I feel the whole abduction experience, the whole cat mutilation scenarios were about. I know Linda doesn't really agree with that so much, but I think they needed to create huge vats of incubation, womb-like creations to put these hybrids in with a lot of blood, a lot of soft tissue from cows and horses to create these, I wouldn't say artificial wombs, but these wombs made of animal to start to breed these genetic specimens in, because they didn't have containers to birth these new race of beings. And so I agree also with David Jacobs that these hybrids are going to come here to take over our planet. You know, there's millions of Earth-like planets out here, and they've studied us. They, I think, may have even been in and out of our population, the hybrids, but you know, they are going someplace else that doesn't have the dramas that the human world has.
They're colonizing somewhere else.
Yeah, that's my feeling.
Sure,
I know that? I don't know that, but that's my feeling, is that, well, also I talked to Bashar. Have you talked to Bashar?
I have, actually. I just went to a 3-day workshop about a month ago. He was here in Los Angeles, and I did, yeah. And so you think that perhaps the gray or the hybrids are maybe doing something more like the Yael or the Essassani, and they're sort of colonizing.
He is a hybrid of the human alien
race.
A
future kind of gray hybrid.
Really?
The Essassani are, I'm telling Tony, they are basically future grays, and the grays are future us. Basically,
oh, really?
Yeah, that's how they basically are us, the humanoids that we are, and
how
do they make hybrids if they can't reproduce?
They got them from us.
That's right.
That's what the abduction and the hybrid program is about. If you want to explain that, Alan.
Well, that's what I was saying. They created these huge incubations,
Right.
these womb things with the animal parts and the blood.
Mhm.
They took the human genetics and our ability to feel and create
Mhm.
and have passion and emote, mixed that with their high intellectual genetic capabilities, and created a species that was both incredibly intelligent and also feeling and compassion. That's what Bashar is a product of.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, I think there were turns in the timelines that created the grays, and I think also we don't have to make that turn now.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the timeline we are following. I don't think we at this timeline relationship will become grays, because I think we're reinventing the capacity to feel as human beings, not even mixing with the grays. So, but anyway, Bashar said I was part of his genetic line. He said, "Thank you, great grandfather." In my interview with him, have you seen my interview with him?
I actually started to watch it before. I just caught it right before, like earlier today. I didn't get to see the whole thing. That's really cool. I actually had when I first met, not was caught on to Daryl's work with Bashar. And then I was in meditation. I thought, I want to go and see Bashar sometime. And I heard Bashar come really strongly through in my meditation and say, we already know each other. And that was way before I got to go to his workshop or anything like that. And it was very, it was very visceral. And I feel that way too. Like you're saying that we're not on that same timeline right now. And to that point is just look at all of the new children that we have. That is a different race, right? I think that is really impacting the timeline that we are on right now.
Including the autistic spectrum.
Supposedly autistic, right.
Yeah, right. Well, anyway, are you following all this, Tony?
No, I am. No, I find it fascinating, and listen. The reason I started Truth Be Told was, and I tell people, I'm not an expert at anything in this industry. I actually am doing it for a selfish reason of learning. I'm learning from you and Tricia and all the people that I've had on, Linda Moulton Howe and all the people, because I think the more we learn, the more we can understand. When we understand, more acceptance of change and spirituality, and so I think this is where hopefully most people are going, so we can make a better world.
Well, definitely, I think we're at a really critical point in our history. We are blossoming, if we are allowed to open up, like Tricia there, the greater facilities of her mind, of her software, to start to tune into these other realities and imagine a whole planet that functioned on that level.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So what would that look like?
I want to ask, because I was going to ask this earlier about when it comes to religion and spirituality. Do you feel that the extraterrestrials kind of began our religion, not necessarily religion as a term, but as the spirituality, and then when human minds interpreted it and took over, it became more of a power than a spirituality, and now that's why we're so closed, because there's so many rules when it comes to religion, and where spirituality is all about freedom and acceptance. I mean, do you feel that spirituality was the beginning of our religion through extraterrestrials?
Well, I don't. Well, I think even before religion, I think I'm not sure who they were. Some people call them the Anunnaki.
Yeah, the Anunnaki, exactly.
There was a genetic upgrade with the evolving primates.
Right.
And we were infused with this divine essence, so we are part animal and part divine.
Right.
I mean, and I think that was a huge leap in the human race. I mean, the word man, we're spirit men and women. So who we are is spirit. And yes, I think religion came in and co-opted the natural spirituality that we all have and tried to own it, tried to direct it, tried to control it. I'm not saying there's not some good things in religion, but I'm saying there's not much good things.
Yeah. Tony and I are both expats of religious
I grew up in Kansas.
societies, so we're with you.
Right.
I do think the spiritual teachings of these religions, I mean, I do think Jesus wasn't a Christian, Buddha wasn't a Buddhist.
Right. It's hilarious to think of that.
So who we are really on a soul essence is who we are. That is the essence. That is the pure spirit. And this is our evolution. By remembering that, we start to awaken the greater facilities of our consciousness, ETs, UTs, IT. I mean, these are just different ways of saying there's a soul out there, and we are evolving on a soul level. We are evolving creatures of this landscape, and we're not greater or lesser than any of these other beings. We're equal to them. We're here because we are, but something is evolving, something's changing in our human destiny, and that's where we're at in a really, really exciting way, where I keep coming back to it's the software, it's the ability to have more online than we have to these new realities. So it comes down to that, how do we know what we don't know?
Right.
How do we know what we don't know? We don't, but there's well, what would you say, Kimberly?
Tricia.
But that's so funny. That is my sister's name.
Oh my God.
I have 4 sisters.
And the last guy kept calling you Trina.
It's totally fine. No, but it's funny. The reason I say that is because Tony and I did another show
right before this,
and he was calling me Tina, which is another one of my sister's names.
That is funny.
Everybody's just channeling my sisters.
And those aren't names that you would just like easy names.
Anyway,
looking at a text from Kimberly Meredith.
Then it's totally random. No, I don't know who that is.
I don't know. You should interview her. She had a near-death experience and came back.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I would love to have her on my show. I have a show as well. It's all about metaphysics and spirituality and stuff. So yeah, I would love
to. Too. So anything you want.
Great.
So yeah, if we can start to train ourselves to open up this consciousness to this level. These are radio receivers, right?
Yes.
If a radio man can receive something, 100 miles away, this is the most sophisticated piece of machinery in the universe. We could pick up thought forms and consciousnesses millions of miles away, billions of miles away. It's just a matter of frequency. So when we find, and we're actually doing it right now, we're just not aware of the distinction. Like what's that? That course, they talk about distinction. It used to be est, and now it's something else.
Don't look at me.
I don't know.
You would know more than I would.
Distinction. I don't know.
Anyway, they talk all about distinction, and we don't have the distinction. I mean, you do, Trish, because you've understood what these levels of consciousness are. Somebody else may just think they're crazy, right? I mean, that's part of that, overcoming the social resistance to having our own thoughts. But you've opened up your mind, your brain, to make the distinction of these influx of other consciousnesses, other waves, but most people haven't. And so I feel we do that because we're able to make, the only people who can make distinctions are able to find that they can tune into those frequencies.
Yes.
Like, you ever go to like a wine tasting, and everyone tastes the same wine, right? So we're all getting the same thoughts, but the Salmari, the guy or the woman who was the expert in wine tasting. So you taste the wine and it tastes like wine. You say, great, okay. And then they say, did you taste the woody flavor? Did you taste like
that would be
fruity?
It tastes like wine.
Most of the time you can, once it's pointed out. So I'm saying, once the distinction is made, then you can recognize it. You see, you can't recognize something you haven't cognized. And that's really my focus in dealing with the ET issue. How do we cognize new realities so then we can recognize it, right? The word recognition comes from recognizing.
Right.
So it's a little intellectual, but how do we cognize a new reality if we don't know what that is? Someone has to point it out to us. So this is how we're going to make this inner contact. Yes, I think this is what the ETs are really waiting for. And yes, of course they could land and be public, but we need to be trained in this telepathic, empathic level of being in order to truly make contact, because that's where contact is made.
Yes.
I want to ask both of you actually this. I know in one of the lines I read that that human beings are trying to understand their true place in the universe. And if we're talking about the Anunnaki who kind of combine DNA and to create us, the human beings, human race. How do we find our place in the universe if we kind of are either an experiment or a creation from other beings?
Personally, there.
Well, I'm sorry. What was it?
I think you're taking it too personally.
Of course I am, but I'm just trying to figure out. It's like, how do we find our place in the universe if we were an experiment? I mean, what is our purpose?
Okay, you're the guest though. Why don't you answer it? I have an answer too.
Because I think it's not about any of that stuff on a soul level,
right?
On a level, we're all the same. There is no place in the universe it's every place.
There's no place.
Right.
Yeah.
Your soul and spirit is equal to any of these really high, advanced, intellectual, brilliant ETs.
A soul is a soul.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we might actually be more of a soul than they are, because we have been in this emotionality of development. And so that's the place. It's not about being from a planet or a star. I mean, everyone likes to say, oh, they're from the Pleiades or Sirius or Orion.
Right, I hear that.
I say,
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's like saying you're from, New Jersey.
Right. And I was going to say also that, so you say we were an experiment or something like that.
Well, I mean, when people talk about it, seems
Sure.
like we're a DNA experiment.
Yeah, but so let's say if that were true, we were an experiment. That doesn't matter. Whatever that energy was, we are this now. We are vibrating at a true, real level of complete, expressions of divine. So it doesn't matter what an initial intention was, because the intention now we are vibrating at it, which is being.
It's kind of like a one-night stand creating a baby.
Yeah,
they weren't.
There you go. Good point. Yeah, they weren't planning it,
they
but
weren't
now this is a
planning it.
baby.
No, but let me just add to that, because it's more than just a one-night stand. It's an ongoing relationship. Because
Right.
it's all a one-night stand. And wherever it's ongoing creation, it's all like that. It's all an experiment of the evolving natural world. Even for the Anunnaki, how did they get there?
True.
Boom. And it really comes from consciousness first. Consciousness decided to create a more perfected body than just the evolving primates here. It's like you can only be so conscious in a animal body because they don't have the facilities of brain capacity. Like you can only fit so much hardware into one of those old early Mac computers. If you don't have the facility, you're not going to be able to do the advanced, work. But as we upgrade our system, as we interbreed, as we kind of get more sophisticated, we can embody more of the divine soul aspect. And that was really the purpose for that experiment. It wasn't just a curiosity. It was to be embodied as divine beings.
Why? And this is, anytime you say UFOs or extraterrestrials, people ask this. Okay, our governments, leaders and of all nations, they know they're there. They've, they've even said, they've been in contact with it. They've talked to them. They maybe have treaties. We've heard it all. So I'm going to ask you this. Why do you think the governments and the religions know the truth? Why don't they tell us common folk that they're there? We're not alone. Why do you think that they're not telling us? Why do you think? Is it something that is it going to take away their power? Is it going to take away the religion? What do you think your theory is on that?
I think it is it will be the most historic moment in human civilization when we formally meet the others.
Right. Of course.
Will redefine us. And it's something that religion isn't prepared for, government's not prepared for. I mean, supposedly, and I don't know what's true and what's not true, Eisenhower met these ETs. They said, give us technology and we'll let you abduct some people. I mean, is that something the government wants to admit? That
Right.
They said, sure, use our people as experiments for your genetic purposes. So, but Richard Dolan has written a whole book about that, and I think he makes some great points after disclosure. But I think what it really comes down to is greed, and this was in the movie Thrive, because if these ETs are getting here, they're not filling up their gas tank.
Mhm.
They have a technology that will, even beyond ETs themselves, having their technology will change our world in ways that we can't comprehend, because everything will be upgraded. Imagine having the energy sources to cultivate all the desert of the world, to to light the cities. I mean, people won't have to work. People are just really working now for energy. That's why people go to work, to pay for their energy supplies.
True.
So
True.
Imagine if we had free energy, and I think we deserve that. That's our birthright, like free healthcare. I think that's something that's immoral. So we are fighting, I think, the corporate greed, not so much the government greed, the government trying to keep a lid on it. I do think the governments do know. I mean, if you look at some of those interviews with Obama on the Ellen DeGeneres show, and even the George Bush show, the George Bush program he did with Jimmy Kimmel.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
I saw that. Yeah.
See that? He said, "Well, I just can't tell you, Jimmy." He said, Jimmy said, "Well, what can't you tell us?" And he goes, "Well, I can't tell you that." But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know. And why don't they tell us? Because I think there is a degree of people not knowing how to handle it.
Yeah.
But, it's multifaceted. But I do think we're getting closer to
Disclosure.
that point of disclosure.
Yeah.
I mean, disclosure and there's contact, and they're sort of parallel tracks.
Right.
The contact is the ETs showing up, and they are doing it. UFO sightings around the world. So it's a coming and going, and preparing the psyche. I mean, I've met maybe 10 people in the last year who say they're getting telepathic communications with ETs. So it's the inner awareness and the outer awareness. So we're building towards that. So when we finally do have open contact, people aren't freaked out, and the government can't do anything. So, yeah, it's a process. And, look at, there's like 4,000 people that come to contact every year.
Yeah.
And they're really, and people did you see stuff at Orion's Point out there? Did you see some of the ships going out there?
I didn't see it. We didn't go I think it was the first night or second. I can't remember. We went one night. We didn't see the orbs and everything, but the night before, I think it was night before, Jimmy Church was telling me about it.
Glasses?
Say that again?
Use the night vision glasses.
I didn't get. No, I didn't go. We were sitting off to the side. So
go and talk to Melinda next year and use the night vision glasses, and you will see stuff in the sky.
That's awesome.
That you won't be able to explain. Definitely.
Well, I think once they are disclosed. I mean, and it's out in the open of yes, they're here. Do you think our not necessarily spirituality, but our senses will be instantly enlightened, or do you feel like more telepathic, or do you think that's going to have to be taught to us?
I think it is being taught to us now.
Is that just
in the
intuition?
Well, yes and no. Yes, I actually teach telepathy. Telepathy, we can really grasp it better from our perspective if we think of it like a language, and I actually teach it like a language. But yes, it is an intuitive language.
Oh, really?
It is the real Esperanto. Yeah.
Well, we have about 4 minutes left, and Alan, you're fascinating. You're going to have to come back again.
Yeah, I want you on my show too.
Yes.
Your show, I'm free and available to do that. So yeah, because I want to talk to you too about developing those psychic awarenesses.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah.
the
Oh, yeah,
way.
I'd love it. Absolutely.
Because I think we need to start to open up the capacity of our awareness. This is the evolution. So your question is, will it just all of a sudden happen? We're working towards this. These programs that we're doing, Trish, me, you, we're building a foundation of awareness, of consciousness. You know, consciousness is the pop word of the day, you know, and I think the human race, like you're saying with the new children, are changing. They're already aware in different ways, and the rest of us are catching up to that. So when there's a quantum shift in the field of awareness, that is what I think they're waiting for.
Yeah.
Maybe 2020, you know, we will all see 2020. That's sort of the clear vision.
That would be nice.
That'd be nice.
I'm hoping, and I pray that it's in my lifetime.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
Already in your lifetime. It's already happened to you, Tony.
Right.
You just don't remember. You're
No.
one of us.
Listen. I remember as a kid. I did see a UFO. In fact, my mom, my sisters, and my brother and I asked my mother the other night. We hadn't talked about it in years, and I said, "Mom, do you remember seeing the UFO?" And she said, "Oh, of course." She goes, and she told me was funny. She says, "Your sisters were screaming to get out of there. You were going, I want to go with them. I want to go with them."
Oh, that's so cute.
I was like
I
8
love
years
it.
old going, I want to go with them. I want to go with them.
Oh.
And I was
You know,
like,
Bud Hopkins used to meet people like your story, and he would regress them, and they actually were taken with them. If you
Oh,
were
really?
regressed,
Ooh.
you may
that'd be fun.
have because that does usually happen. That's why people don't talk about it, because there's something in their subconscious that they don't want to connect with. So I would say chances are you may have been abducted there. You've already been with them.
Yes. That would be great.
You need to get a regressor on here, and then you can
I would love
get
that.
regressed.
I
Yeah,
would love
that'd be
that.
great.
Well, Alan,
Go back.
go ahead.
Wait, let me just
Oh,
ask you, Tony.
yes, please,
I know you
please.
want to- But do you remember that moment perfectly when you saw the UFO?
I mean, I was so young. I remember the situation. I don't remember the details of it. I just remember seeing it. It was
All right, that's what we're going to take you back to.
yeah. I mean, and my mom, she remembers it like it was yesterday, and she even said there was another time that we actually saw a disc landed out in a field, and she says,
It's looking more and more like an abduction scenario.
yeah,
That's cool.
or a bad
Well,
porno. I'm not for sure.
I mean, I think maybe people who have the facility that Trish has, she probably had some contact too.
Yeah, I have the inkling that I was probably in the hybrid program. I know one of the signs or symptoms is having interrupted kind of reproductive stuff when you were younger. And yeah, when I was a teenager, I had a lot of trouble.
Really?
And they couldn't figure out why. Yeah.
Wow. See.
Right, there you go. We're all part of that club.
Yeah.
So maybe there you go.
And I'm so empathic. Like they just needed to take a drop of what I got, and they could.
Oh yeah, she's.
they
one of
could
the best.
feel. They could feel out a lot of people.
You're empathic is because you've had this experience. I think the reason that I have whatever telepathic facility I have, because I did have these early abductions, and you know, I definitely think your conditions related to that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, my abilities were fully intact when I was a kid. I spoke with animals like it was nothing. And when I did that thing where I came out to my family after uncovering all of
Especially
this stuff,
Christianity.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my family wasn't Christian. I took myself to church.
Oh,
That's how weird I was. I was trying to find
What's wrong with you?
that
No,
was
just kidding.
that was the only offering for spirituality. So you know what I
Right,
mean.
right,
Like I
right.
gravitated toward it. But when I came out to my family, you know, as an adult about this stuff, all of my sisters were just like, "Oh, that's not surprising." Like they were bored. They were bored
funny.
with my coming out about being a medium and an animal communicator. They're like, "Well, that makes sense."
What you're doing, I think, is part of the evolution. You know, we need to talk about these types of facilities that are inherent within the human being, and this will create the new race. And so when the ETs will land, it's like, oh, what's the big deal? That's what they're waiting for. not to-
Yes.
Otherwise, most people out there watching football, drinking beer, will
Their
be-
heads will just explode.
Right.
exactly.
Are you going to be in any events coming up or other?
I'm doing a UFO event in Vermont. Forgot what that's called. I think it's called like I'll send that to you.
Yeah,
It's-
please do.
And then I'm doing the New Life Expo in October here in New York City. I'll be doing the Conscious Living Expo again in LA. Do you come to that?
Oh yeah, we'll be there.
In LA, I'll be doing that. I'll be doing Contact in the Desert next year. I think I'm going to be talking in Sarasota, Florida.
Oh nice.
Which is I'm doing as hosting Kimberly Meredith, who's an incredible healer in New York, September 28th. So if people want to find out about her, she's someone who's because of her near-death experience, she's totally opened up and is a total channel for the angels.
Ooh,
Oh, nice.
love it.
Nice.
She's coming to New York September 28th. So be there. She's also located in LA, but September 28th, go to my website, newrealities.com. You can also look at my interviews. I just did a great interview with Stuart Pierce talking about angels.
Love Stuart. He's such a great guy. And his voice, that English voice.
Yeah, I did a great interview with him. I'm also doing some stuff with Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson.
Love him.
Although what?
No, she loves.
I just love them all. They're just my everything.
Although I did ask Deepak about ETs, he said, "Oh, what's here is everywhere." And, but he was someone who's so smart and brilliant and such a communicator wasn't willing in a way to step into that world.
That's surprising.
Because he said to me, "No, I can't. I'm writing books with Stephen Hawking. I can't do this." I can't. Anyway,
He's like, I got enough on my plate.
Right.
No, I just don't think he's brilliant and he's a great guy, but he's, you have to have some connection. This is what I'm meeting. Either you got it or you don't. Either you're open to it or people think you're crazy,
Right. No, that's true.
It's like that's the world we're divided into. You actually have a sighting. And it's like, talking to Patricia Katai from the Phoenix Lights. Have you interviewed her?
No, I'm gonna interview her. That sounds good.
Was a physician in 1997. She saw the Phoenix Lights over Phoenix. It
Yes.
totally changed the world. She wasn't into any of this stuff at all, and boom, she becomes obsessed with this.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that's what you
That's
find
good.
in Contact in the Desert. People are obsessed with this because they've had some sort of experience. It could have just been a sighting, but
They
it
want
leaves
answers.
an impact.
And they don't
that
want to
change-
feel alone.
What's that?
No, that they want answers and they don't want to feel alone. That's why they come
And-
to be around other people.
About that cognitive awareness changes you forever. That's why you never forget this. That's why if you have dreams, you never forget those dreams about ETs, because it impacts our mind in a deep way that's beyond our social humanity.
Right.
It wakes something up on a spirit level almost that changes us. It's the shaman's journey, you could say, is meeting the ET other. And that's the adventure we're all going to be on sooner or later, as soon as our planet wakes up. So wake up.
Wake
Well,
up.
Alan, the crowd goes wild. You must come back. Will you promise to come back? Okay. And
Come
you're
back anytime. Because we really didn't even get into the really hardcore stuff. But we
exactly.
will.
That's why you have to come back. So
Oh, hardcore.
yeah, we like the hardcore stuff. All right. Well, you're a joy. We really appreciate you and keep up the great work. I hope to finally get to meet you I know Captain Ron and I are going to be in November outside Laughlin. Are you going to be at Laughlin? I think they're having a conference there.
Paula Harris thing? Maybe. I like Paula Harris.
Yeah, we're going to go out there, I think.
At the Conscious Living Expo.
Well, Conscious Life Expo here in LA, we definitely will be there. I mean,
is that in January? When is
it's
that?
in February. It's always in
February,
February.
yeah.
So, well, all right.
We'll be your show, Tricia, anytime.
I will be reaching out. Thank you. I
Yay.
appreciate that. Yes.
All right. All right.
So
Well, go to newrealities.com. Check out all the information about Alan, and go to the YouTube channel. Subscribe, leave comments. I'm sure he'd love it. So many great interviews there. You've done such a great job. So thank you, and keep up the great work.
Look at my Bashar interview. You'll love that.
Oh, don't worry. We will. All right. Until next time, you've listened to Truth Be Told. This is Tony Sweet.
I'm Tricia Carr.
And you can go to Tricia Carr's website at
TriciaCarrCharm.com.
That's it. All right. And go to truthbetoldwebtv.com. Check out all our upcoming guests. And please subscribe to our channel, Truth Be Told TV. So until then, we'll see you next time.